Good afternoon. This is the Public Health and Safety Committee, Tuesday, April 4th. We have an agenda of resolutions that I will take on consent, and you let me know if any need to come off. We'll go through them. RS 2023-2086, Roten and Syracuse authorizes the Metropolitan government to join the state of Tennessee and other local governments in amending the Tennessee State Subdivision Opioid Abatement Agreement and approving the related settlement agreements. RS 2023-2089, Roten and Syracuse approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide the Community Health Access and Navigation in Tennessee program to deliver comprehensive care coordination services to eligible families and children. 2023-2090, Roten and Syracuse approves Amendment 1 to a Strengthening Public Health Infrastructure, Workforce, and Data Systems grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Board of Health to implement workforce strategies to build organizational resilience, promote employee well-being, and enhance workforce performance while focusing on building healthier communities. 2023-2091, Roten and Syracuse approves Amendment 2 to a Presumptive Eligibility Services grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide prenatal presumptive eligibility program enrollment and assistance to pregnant women with TennCare and Cover Kids applications. And 2023-2092, Roten and Syracuse approves an application for a Project Safe Neighborhoods grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metropolitan Police Department to reduce gun-related violence in Nashville by funding additional training, staff overtime, and the purchase of additional forensic equipment.
So moved.
Do any of these need to come off of a consent agenda? All right. Well, hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye. C.
Against? No voting? All right, thank you very much. All good stuff. Thank you. We have one late item, and I'll just preface it to say at the full body and discussing last Monday's tragedy at the Covenant School, working with the mayor's office and vice mayor and the Metro Police Department, Metro Schools, Metro Health, and I had conversations with the Valdi Foundation and Sandy Hook as well to try to facilitate an effective and unified approach. I'm going to lay out a framework that I would love everybody's input on about some special called meetings that we're going to have in regards to all of this. So stay tuned with that, and I'll make the announcement on the floor. So would love everybody's input on that framework. I kind of see us having probably 3, maybe 4. With everything that we have going on right now, we need to make sure that we pull a laser focus on what happened. And I think having a agreed upon framework, I think, is the way to go. So I'm willing to, very willing and receptive to any thoughts on that. But to that regard, then, let's move on to the late filed resolution from Councilmember Johnston. A resolution directing the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department to conduct an evaluation of the safety plans and measures of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Councilman?
Thank you. And Chair, I super appreciate and I'm excited about your leadership in putting these meetings together, and it's unfortunate that we're having to have these discussions, but nonetheless we have to. And I think that it's a complicated issue to deal with what we're having to deal with, which is active shooters in our schools. And it's multifaceted, but one of the things that we absolutely can control, and is, for all intents and purposes, really is some low-hanging fruit is school security. And so I think what will be helpful in these meetings that you're facilitating is a report from MNPD on the overarching district-wide recommendations for capital improvements for school security, some, whatever human resources they see fit, any professional and consistent training for staff and unfortunately students as well. For that to be made public so that everything is incredibly transparent, and then to hear from MNPS what of those recommendations they plan to do, when they plan to do them, and if they're choosing to not heed those recommendations, a reason why. And I think this is coming not just from me and hopefully not just from this body, but I know that it's coming from staff in our schools that are scared, students, and certainly parents for their children. So I apologize for the late nature. The incident happened after our filing deadline, and I did not want to wait another 2 weeks I think time clearly is of the essence. We're behind the 8 ball, in my opinion, and so I hope that you will support this.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you, Chair. Wondering if the sponsor or anyone else in the room has had any discussion with the school board and where they are. I know they have made plans and already have some policies and things in place. So just wondering if there is any collaboration with them with this resolution that you're presenting and what that is.
Yes, Frida Player, I was going to say Player Peters, but she's not that anymore. Frida reached out to me today to be a resource, and I appreciate that. And they do have a security plan in place. I think this is more for public transparency and to make people feel better, because we've got experts that handle this, and I know that we're not doing everything that we can. And so I think it's important for parents to know that what these recommendations are from the experts and what we're going to do. And certainly not making everything public, because there are going to be some building and site specific things that are absolutely going to be and need to remain confidential. But I think parents want to know, what do the police say? What do the experts say that we need to do? And what are we doing? And that has not happened as of yet. We do have a school safety division that was created last year in the wake of Uvalde, I believe. And that Commander Bird, started in August of 2022 as a collaborative effort with MNPS. And so I think this is just going to help facilitate a public conversation, because we need to have a public conversation and parents need to be brought into it.
I'll just follow up with that. While I agree that we need to be transparent and upfront with the public about the needs and how we are addressing school safety, which is very important to everyone. My concern is that either we're duplicating something that's already being done, or we are creating another bureaucracy on top of what the school board is already doing. So I just want to make sure that we're not doing that. And maybe if Captain Gilder, if you know of any collaboration or conversations that MNPD has had with MPS, okay, I'm getting right, regarding this issue.
So yeah, like Councilmember Johnston said, since the school safety division was created last year, that's their primary function, is to address various school safety issues, including the very thing that we're talking about, these types of scenarios. But so there have been conversations that have been had. I don't know the extent to which, formal plans have been created and certain adoption, yes, we're going to adopt this, no, we're going to not adopt that. I don't know the extent of that.
So MNPD is not involved in that process with MNPS?
Well, I think our role is that we, coming from the expert side of safety issues, can make recommendations. Now, what I'm saying is to what extent the school has agreed or accepted those, or I can say. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I guess I would like the chairman's thoughts. He's really been working to line up a lot of expertise, several meetings, and I wonder if this isn't just getting ahead of that a little bit. That will cause, we have one set of plans and agreements, and then we come up with the committee and we add some more. And I certainly understand the urgency, understand the sponsors' concerns here, share those. But I think if the chairman's planning a deep dive into this to come up with this overriding policy, this may be a little premature.
So I disagree with that. I mean, I think the
I asked the chairman for his opinion first.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I will say, I guess I could say I'm agnostic. I don't think it doesn't hurt to pass this if you want something public-facing to show that we're doing something. I think the results of this would be done as part of the special called meeting series that I'm going to be putting in place anyway. Councilmember Rosenberg has gotten a proposed amendment here that basically asks MNPD to include legislative recommendations. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. I will say, in my conversations with Sandy Hook, they did suggest don't rush to file a bunch of legislation. Take the time, obviously, first and foremost, to grieve, support your community, and then this is what they were suggesting. This was putting together something that's a little more methodical and intentional than various members filing legislation. That said, I'm agnostic to this. I think this is stuff that will happen through those special called meetings, regardless of whether we put it in legislation form or not. So I don't have a problem supporting it, but with the will of the committee. So go ahead. Actually, Councilmember Pulley was first. Go ahead. Yeah.
Unless you want her to respond, Councilmember Nash, before I go.
Feel free.
So the overall district recommendations are pretty much already there. This is not duplicating effort on the police departments. It's just putting it into a report that can be forward-facing so that we can involve our community in these discussions as well, because I think parents want to know. And I think the sooner we request that, the sooner we will get it. Can it be in conjunction with this? It obviously needs to be. But again, I would rather ask for it sooner rather than later. Additionally, the site-specific assessments that are requested in here are required by state law, and they're doing that anyway. And so I'm not asking for any type of duplication of effort. It really is just, can we put this in report form where we can put as much reasonably and responsibly in the public eye as possible, so that we know what these recommendations are, we know what are going to be attended to and what are not, and why, and everywhere in between. But there should, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no duplication of effort from this request.
I think what's requested in the resolution is what the school safety division does, so I
Yeah.
don't think you know that you're asking us to do something in addition to what they are already working on.
Yeah.
Councilman?
Thank you. We've been touched by this terrible tragedy. And when you're touched with it like we are, we have to respond in some way. It's very important because all of the council members in this council, I'm sure, are being called and questioned by parents of school members of how we can keep them safe and what are we doing to see to it that that happens. To me, and this happened in my district, and I've been intimately involved with these families and intimately involved with schools that are neighboring schools who were scared to death and are scared to death, and children who are asking, is it safe for me to go to school? It's very important that we thoroughly and comprehensively walk through this journey, and we rely upon those who are experts in this field, and we rely upon our experts to lead us to what we learn from this, because there are lessons that we will learn from what happened that may help us keep our schools in M&PS safer than we are now. So it's essential that we get on this, but we thoroughly process all this stuff. And Mr. Chair, you made a statement about don't rush to file legislation. That's extremely important, that we walk through this very thoroughly and we do this comprehensively. And that's the important thing for me, is that we do it in this fashion. And I don't see anything in the resolution or the methodology that the chair has chosen. I think that's a prudent path, and I think it's important for our leaders in this area to come before us and be able to answer tough questions if we have them. But again, for the sanctity of the process, we also need to make sure that they lead us down a path that ensures that we don't promote information that's confidential in nature that will undermine the security of our schools if we should happen to put out the wrong information. So that's what I'd have to say to it. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
the sponsor would entertain a deferral of the legislation until the discussions can be had on how this could be a more collaborative, well-thought-out, comprehensive plan that we put into legislation.
I think that the results of this resolution would be complementary to the conversation so that we know what MNPD is requesting or recommending to be a part of these conversations. So typically I have no problem deferring, but all I'm asking for is information. And so I don't see a problem with moving forward with this. And I late filed it for a reason, because I feel like the sooner we get this information and have it at our fingertips, the better.
Well, I don't think not passing this would stop that from happening. It's already going on now, and the chair has indicated that he intends to put together a community outreach group to take it even further. So I don't think us not passing this today will stop that work. It's already happening. I'm just hesitant to move forward with this, knowing that it hasn't been vetted and collaborative with all of the groups, and including this program of this group that the chair's wanting to put forward. So while I appreciate and support the intent behind this, we definitely need a report. I don't want to rush and
Are you wanting to vet what the police department's recommendations are?
No, I'm wanting to have all of the parties involved and the community and the experts be a part of this. And so there may be some other things we need to add in the legislation. I don't know, but it just seems that it's...
See, I just think it's a component.
Let me ask Chief Gilder, who was one of the first ones that I called after I started thinking about how to do this. You've read this late filed resolution?
I did.
And did you also read the potential amendment to the resolution? Which basically, the one line that Councilmember Rosenberg added was MNPD is further directed to include any legislative recommendations it deems beneficial to school safety, irrespective of the level of government at which such legislation must originate. My question, I guess, is based on this. Would this be something as part of this process that you would be doing anyway?
I think the first part, I've not seen the other
one?
amendment. I mean, I can say that we don't typically make legislative recommendations.
At the federal level. Right.
Yeah, or state.
Right.
So that part, no. The original late filed amendment I have seen, and yeah, that is the type of work that the School Safety Division is engaged in. And so I think it's an ongoing process. Again, I know that's the type of work they do. The question about what recommendations have been made and what actions have been taken, like it asks about, I don't know the answers to those things yet, because I'm not sure what MNPS has reviewed and decided on since this division was stood up in this past August.
Right. I will also add that David Brom is the new government relations guy for MNPS, and I had some good conversations with him. I think I'm going to be attending the parent advisory meeting that they're having next Thursday, the 13th. They wanted to hear from their parent advisory committee first, and then based on that, help put together the framework from an MNPS perspective, which I know would include this new safety division. So again, I'm agnostic to this. I feel like this is going to be done anyway as part of this effort. If this body wanted to go on record of having something to go ahead and ask for the report that this asks for, I'm okay with it. It's not going to hurt. Obviously, we have input then on the proposed amendment that might not be supported.
But that could be part of what you're doing. So the report from MNPS as far as school security and what we can do is one component of what you're trying to do, I think, for which is more broad reaching. Is that, am I saying that right? And so again, this to me is just a component of the broader conversation that I think that you are facilitating.
One other question. Is anything in this binding?
Any of it binding? No, it's just a resolution
It's a
request.
memorializing resolution.
It's just a
With
request.
the word directed is in the amendment. Is that in any way binding?
I might have to look at the language again, but generally speaking, resolutions are not how the council officially acts. Now, I think that it is pretty strong for the council to pass a resolution asking for information, and so it may not be binding, but I think that it's likely that it will result in an action requested
And the sponsor's not even here.
of the
Of the
amendment.
amendment.
Right.
Correct.
So that kind of answers that we can't even take it up, right?
But even the
Well,
resolution.
somebody else on the committee can sponsor it, can offer it.
I suggest that part really could wait until we finish all those discussions, and then we can kind of comprehensively, as a body here, look at what we might recommend for ourselves, or send a resolution to the state saying, look, we'd like you to consider some of these things. Again, I think we need to finish this other process. I can support the bill, or the resolution rather, but I think the amendment would add something we all need to do right now.
Just clarification.
Sure.
When you were talking about directing, the resolution does direct MNPD to conduct an evaluation. Is that binding?
I don't view the resolution as binding, again, because the council acts by ordinance. I do think that there is weight to the council's request, regardless of whether it's by resolution or ordinance. But because it's a resolution and not an ordinance, I don't think that it is a binding required action that, has the full force of law behind it.
And two, just for clarification, you mentioned there have been discussions, but there's not an actual evaluation of MNP as plans by MNPD.
Right, I know that there have been meetings and things that have taken place with respect to school safety. I don't know that there's a formal report that has been produced.
Okay.
The other thing that I neglected to mention, I guess, I've read it, but I don't know that there's a timeline on when the report has to be produced. So, I mean, if you want to wait for the meetings to occur to get that input, certainly, I think that's reasonable.
And forgive me if this has already been asked and answered, but I had to go deal in another committee. But so far, everything I've heard about this, we've only been talking about MMPS schools. What about private schools, charter schools, Christian schools? Are we as a metro government looking into those as well?
As part of this process, yes, that I've laid out, yes. It's going to be, obviously, like what we heard from the governor yesterday, is $140 million for school safety, and there's going to be some sort of grant funding that both private and public can apply for. But, for example, to answer your question, Metro Schools just at the end of February announced that they're implementing some gun detection technology in all schools, right?
Yep.
So one of the things I want to ask as part of this framework of special called meetings is, how did you come to that conclusion that that was the best practices, the latest and greatest technology? And then if that's what we determine, then how do we assist private schools in doing the same thing through these grant funding or whatnot? Those are the kinds of conversations I want to have.
Okay, I can tell you right now that the governor will spend as much money as it takes, period. It doesn't matter. We have more than enough in state coffers.
Yes, we do. Can I get them? Yes, go ahead.
And I would like to offer a motion to defer this. I think it's important, but I don't think it's ready yet. And so I would like to offer a friendly motion. I know the sponsor says she would like to make this go forward, and I understand the intent that you really want to let the public know we are addressing this. We know that this is an issue that needs to be addressed immediately. However, I don't want to get ahead of some real comprehensive planning and detailed work that is taking place that could come into this and really put some good meat to this.
And again, this is just a request, so we're on record as making the request for the information. It will be part of the overall and like he said, there is no date certain, so can that be coordinated when that is released and all that? Absolutely, and I think that's totally appropriate. I still think it's important for us to go on record as soon as possible for asking for the information, that's all it is. I'm just asking for the information, to help facilitate from an expert position, to help facilitate these conversations on the best way to protect our staff and our students.
That's a proper motion. There's a deferral. Is there a second on a deferral?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion on a deferral. I guess you already said
I've
it.
made mine, yeah.
And both are very valid arguments. I mean, this is a coin toss. I understand, Council Lady, what you're asking for, and that's for us to go, as a body, to go on the record and say, listen, we do care, period, we do. But there are so many other things that are involved in this that your argument makes perfect sense. Let's not jump out ahead of the cart before we get a horse in front of it, right? Make sense?
No, I'm asking for information.
I'm still gonna vote no on the deferral, but I see both sides of this.
Just asking for information.
Yeah.
All right, well, can I, hands of it, who are in favor of deferral? 1, 2. All right, well, motion does not pass. All right, so we're back to the resolution. Now, so what do we want to do about the amendment? Do we want to leave the amendment alone?
Yes.
Yes.
I haven't heard anybody move it.
All right, so do I have a motion to move?
So moved.
To resolution? All right. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? No? Is that?
Oh, no more discussion.
Yes,
See.
sir.
I'm voting yes.
All in favor of the resolution? 1, 2,
I'd like-
3, 4, 5, 6.
I'd like to be an
Yeah.
abstention.
Abstention, okay. No against, 6 in favor. All right, resolution passes not with the amendment. All right, thank you all. Any other business for this body? Stand adjourned.